Right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from every part of the world you're listening to me today. It's our first real estate insight for the year, and I say a big welcome to you once again. And today we want to check out a topic that has to be the theme for the year for our company, Hardborn Harvest and Homes, and it is agro-tourism. All right, and we're going to be dissecting it from the angle of celebrating Africa's diversity and cultivating a borderless future. All right, agro-tourism, celebrating Africa's diversity, cultivating a borderless future. My name is Stephen. I am Director of Agriculture and Logistics here at Hardborn Harvest. So, um, as you can see, I'm dressed in a native attire that showcases one of the diversities of Africa. You know, Africa is a very rich continent, super blessed, and the way the way the creator created Africa, we are supposed to be leading in a number of things. All right, and I'll go ahead to talk about different diversities that we have in Africa. When we talk about geographical diversity, Africa is the second largest in terms of kilometers. When we talk about the land, square, the land mass of Africa, Africa happens to be the number 2 in the world. All right, when we talk about cultural diversity, we have over 2,100 languages in Africa, and I think that makes about 30% of the languages in the world. We have over 500 ethnic groups. In Nigeria, in Africa as a whole, if you look at diversities of Africa in different forms, you realize that Africa is richly blessed. When you talk about biodiversity as well, we have over 1,100 species of mammals. We have over 300 species of birds. Africa is just blessed in diverse ways. And today, what we want to look at is Africa's diversity from the angle of agriculture. All right. Let's imagine if Africa fully harnessed its agricultural wealth, not just to feed itself, but to attract millions of visitors from around the world through agro-tourism. What if agriculture became the key to a borderless Africa? All right. When you look at agricultural diversity of Africa as well, we should know that Africa has the largest arable land in the world. And what that simply means is that the land that you can use to plant different crops, when you talk about land that you can use to plant different crops, Africa sits at number 1 in the world. And that means that, Africa shouldn't even be thinking about planting or rearing or planting crops just to eat alone, but to feed Africa, to feed the rest of the world. That is how blessed Africa is in terms of the arable land that we have in Africa. So, if you can go deeply to harness the wealth of agriculture in Africa, then, the sky is the starting point for Africa. So we want to look at it from the angle of agro-tourism. All right, if we fully harness our agricultural wealth, not just thinking about what we eat alone, but how we bless our world, and at the same time, bring millions of people all around the world to see the riches in agriculture, a lot can happen. I want to see how agriculture, agro-tourism is linked with creating a borderless Africa. So let's dive in. Let me talk about the rich agricultural diversity of Africa. All right, number 1 here says that Africa is the world's largest producer of cocoa, of coffee, and of cashew. All right, Africa is the world's largest producer of cocoa, coffee, and cashew. Number 2, Africa has over 200 breeds of cattle. Number 3, North Africa is famous for olive oil production and citrus fruits, while South Africa is known for its maize, sugarcane, and wine production. Number 4 says East Africa is renowned for its coffee and tea, while West Africa is famous for its cocoa and coffee production. Cocoa, coffee, and at the same time, cassava as well. This is just a little out of the rich agricultural diversity of Africa. We are super blessed in Africa. Here in Africa, You know, you can cook your soup, and then probably you have some seeds from the water that you use for your tomato, and you pour it outside, and before you know it, you see that tomato starts sprouting up or start springing up outside your backyard, without you doing anything to it. That's how rich, our land is here in Africa. What is the potential of agriculture in Africa? Number one, Africa has 65% of the world's uncultivated arable land, as stated by FAO in 2017. So, out of the arable land that is still left in the world, Africa has about 65% of it. That shows how powerful, agriculture is in Africa. Also, agricultural GDP. Agriculture accounts for 23% of Africa's GDP, stated by African Development Bank in 2020. Number three, employment. 60% of Africa's labor force is employed in agriculture. World Bank, that's the source. Then when you talk about market size, Africa's agricultural market is projected to grow from 280 billion in 2015 to 1 trillion, by 2030. All of this stated here goes a long way to show that, there is so much potential, for agriculture in Africa. All right, what then is agro-tourism? Agro-tourism is a type of tourism that involves visiting and participating in agricultural activities, such as farming, such as ranching, or wine making. The word agro-tourism comes from the fusion of two words, agro from agriculture and tourism, and then it is married together, to say it's a form of agricultural tourism. All right, it's a form of agricultural tourism. So this involves people visiting and participating in different agricultural activities. It could be farming, crop production, in ranching, in rearing of animals, in winemaking, and as we go on, we would see a particular part of Africa where winemaking is really a big deal in agro-tourism. All right, agro-tourism allows tourists to experience rural life, to learn about agricultural practices, and connect with local communities. The moment you fuse agriculture and tourism together, what it does is that it allows people from different parts of the world to come and experience the rich agriculture that we have in Africa. All right. What is a borderless Africa, right? A borderless Africa, we're talking about a vision for Africa where Africans can move around their own continent without the current restrictions in place for seamless travel, for trade, for integration and development. I'm sure a good number of us saw, recently that Dangote was talking about the fact that, it's tough for him to get into different African countries, that it takes him a lot of time before he gets visas into different African countries. And that we're talking about the richest man in Africa. If the richest man in Africa has such problems, we that we are not the richest, we are coming, we are upcoming, we are believing that we'll get there. So what would be our own story when we are trying to, and I can share some stories. We've tried applying to South Africa for visa and it's not been, it's very easy. You want to go to different parts of Africa, they require you to pay money for visa, it takes time and all of that. We're thinking about an Africa where there is borderlessness, an Africa where there is ease of access, an Africa where we can come together, be united and get to do things together, interact in terms of trade, in terms of, development, seamless travel, for things like agro-tourism. That's what we're talking about when we say a borderless Africa. Africa without borders. Africa where it is easy, for Ghana to go to Nigeria, for Nigeria to go to Kenya, Kenya to go to South Africa without hassles. All right? So that is what we want to look at today. How agro-tourism, can help with this borderless Africa concept. So what are the methods of agro-tourism? All right? First one is farm stays. A good number of us have asked that, when you say agro-tourism, what are you talking about? Okay, so number one here is farm stays. Tourists stay on a working farm or ranch, participating in daily activities and learning about agricultural practices. So there are places around the world that, just like you go for vacation in different places. You go for vacation in these places, you know, you lodge in their, the hotel they have on the farm, and then you are lodged there, and then you are given the opportunity, you know, to see things happening on the farm. Another form of agrotourism is agricultural tours, where this time you don't have to stay. The farm stay, you need to be lodged there for you to, practice different things, learn how things are being done on the farm. You move from one point to another. The other one is agricultural tours, you know, where you are given a guided tour of farms, of ranches, of agricultural facilities. Providing insights into agricultural production and processing. So here, you know, you don't have to be lodged, like I stated in farm stays. Here you come into the farm, you know, to see different things happening on the farm. You are given a guided tour. You are being told how certain things are done on the farm. You are being educated. That's another form of agrotourism. Then another one is rural tourism, where you come, you know, to the farm, and then you see how how things are being done in that locality, how things are being done on that farm, because most farms are sited in villages, in rural areas. You know, so one of the things you get to enjoy through agrotourism is that, you know, after visiting the farm and seeing what is happening on the farm, you have the opportunity as well to see things that are happening in that rural area. You know, just like at Bond Harvest and Homes, when you come to Legacy Green Homestead, you know, we carry you out, we take you on guided tours on the different enterprises we have on the farm, and at the same time, we take you to the villages around us, you know, and you see how they live, how they interact, the kind of religion, you know, they have there, you know, the cultural, you know, diversity within that environment. You get to experience it through agrotourism. Another one is ecotourism. That's tourism that promotes environmental conservation and sustainable practices. You know, places like Kenya, where you have the opportunity to visit safaris, you know, and then, this ecotourism talks about you not affecting or disturbing what is available in that environment. You know, places like this, what we'll talk about, you not just indiscriminate felling of trees, where deforestation is reduced to the barest minimum, where plantation of trees are being encouraged. You know, you have this as one method of agrotourism. And another one, which is agritourism, another word for agrotourism, is that tourists are being given the opportunity to focus on different agricultural activities, you know, such as going to pick your own, you know, items from the farm. You know, you are being given the opportunity to carry out, you know, harvesting. You know, you can go to the farm, you harvest crops yourself, you know, and you could, you could be given some cuisines on the farm that you get to enjoy, you know, and then festivals like yam festivals, you know, in certain parts of Nigeria. You know, these are things you get to enjoy through agrotourism. All right, what are the benefits of this agrotourism we're talking about? First is economic benefits. You know, one thing it does is that it creates jobs and income for the rural farmers. You know, the moment people start coming in, you can imagine, for instance, Legacy Green Homestead. Let's say we start having people coming from the US, from Canada. They bring in dollars, they bring in US dollars, they bring in Canadian dollars. And what it does for the farmers is that it enriches them. It creates more job opportunities for them in that environment. It increases their revenue, and then, you know, it stimulates what? Economies through tourism spending. So the moment, just 2 weeks ago, some people came to the farm. You know, they saw where we make our gari, and then they paid cash, you know, to the farmers, and through that, you know, economy exchange, you know, through tourism spending was enhanced. You know, so through agrotourism, a lot of great things can happen. One is the economic benefit we just talked about: job creation, increased revenue, stimulating, you know, local economies. Another one is cultural benefit. You know, one of the things it does is that it preserves traditional agricultural practices and cultural heritage. You know, and number two is that promotion of cross-cultural understanding and exchange between tourists and local communities. And number three is empowerment of local communities through tourism development. Because the moment people from another territory come around to a particular farm, they come with their culture. They explain what the culture is like, you know, to the rural farmers there, and the farmers to explain what the culture is to them, and then through that people are learning cultures, about one another, and I mean, it brings about promotion of cross-cultural understanding. It empowers the local communities as well. There was a time that we had someone, we've had quite a number of people from outside the country, outside Nigeria, come to our farm, to visit the farm, and that way it also helps the rural farmers to have connect with people outside, their region. And another one is environmental benefits. One of these agrotourism does is that it helps in conservation of natural resources and biodiversity. It helps reduce carbon footprint through local food systems and sustainable transportation. And also it helps in the promotion of sustainable agricultural practices and eco-friendly tourism. One of the things that we preach in agrotourism is that whatever is in whatever you have as your natural resource, you don't tamper with it. You don't just cut trees because you want to make, money. You don't just hamper, whatever nature has given to you there. But you think about ways of harnessing those things that you have in your environment, and then see how you can use it to preach, the very rich diversity of your area and that of Africa. So agrotourism, that's another benefit, environmental benefit. So there are places, where we can talk about successful agrotourism initiatives in Africa. And one of them is Ghana's cocoa farm tourism. One of the very big places you can go to for agrotourism is Ghana's cocoa farm tourism. They have so many farms there that are, rich in cocoa production. So you go there, you learn practices about cocoa, you learn how it is being planted, how cocoa can be converted into chocolate. I think we all know that, through the cocoa in Ghana, a lot of, chocolates are being produced, in the Europe and outside Africa. So one place to actually visit for agrotourism, to really see what they are doing is Ghana. You see how their cocoa, is being done. Ghana's Cocoa Farm Tourism Initiative allows tourists to visit cocoa farms. You learn about the production process, and you also learn how to support local farmers. Another one is Kenya's agricultural tourism. Yeah, we all know about the safaris, the wildlife. Kenya is making a whole lot of money from, agrotourism. You go there, you see elephants, you experience, wildlife. You see, through the various activities happening in Kenya, agricultural system, you get to enjoy, the rich diversity in Africa. And then you can visit South Africa, and then one of the things we enjoy is wine tasting, vineyard tours, and wine-related events. South Africa is really rich in this aspect of agriculture. So these are successful agro-tourism initiatives in Africa. We also are coming up in our company, in our organization, Hardbond Harvest and Homes, and that's why we are talking about agrotourism this very year. All right. There are challenges when it comes to agrotourism as well. There are challenges that come with it, and there are solutions to these challenges. One of the major challenges with agrotourism is border restrictions and visa policies. Like I mentioned earlier, Africa doesn't yet have that kind of EU, partnership that we see, that it's easy for you to move from UK to Germany to, Africa has border restrictions and visa policies. You can imagine you want to go to, South Africa, you have to pay some good amount of money, wait for, some time before you can even say you want to go there to do business. This time around, you're not going because you want to do any other thing. You want to do business, but even at that, these border restrictions and visa policies limits you. It's a major problem. Another one is limited infrastructure and resources for agrotourism development. Most of our rural areas have issues with bad roads, and no electricity, no access to markets. And so all of these things makes it tough, for people to even think about agrotourism. Because if your road is not good, how will people from outside, Africa come to visit you? So that's a major challenge as well. Infrastructure is a major problem, for going into agrotourism. Another one is limited marketing and promotion of agro-tourism initiatives. Because of the kind of, I don't want to use the word sufferness, because of the kind of penury people are suffering, a lot of people don't even think about what they can use our agriculture to project to the outside world. Rather, they think of it from the aspect of, how to feed my family, how to sell, and that's all they think about. Of which, we can generate so much through agrotourism than even just selling, to people within our local community. So limited marketing is a problem. Also, a lot of people don't even really get what it is, to diving into agrotourism. That's another major challenge. Again, lack of capacity building and training for local communities. For people to be involved in agrotourism, they have to be trained for it. They have to understand how to get it done. I think one farm that I would say that I've visited in Nigeria that I think they are doing, good agrotourism is Almat Farms in Abuja. They take you on guided tours, and they're also into horse polo, horse racing and polo. And before you can do all of these things, there has to be capacity building and training for, local communities. So this is another major challenge. All right, so these problems we have talked about, how can we even solve them? Number one is we should have cross-border travel. Cross-border travel should be simplified. We shouldn't be having, in economies, we talked about law of comparative advantage, and that is, a theory that says that, every country, should produce in their area of strength, where you have the lowest opportunity cost. All right, stay in your area of strength. So, if every African country understands what they are rich, in, then produce in that aspect and exchange in other areas. The area of weakness, exchange with other, countries, and then make it easy, for countries to access one another. Let it be easy, this whole visa thing can be laid down, when we know that what we are doing is mutual. Cross-border travel should be simplified. I shouldn't want to travel to Kenya and then be thinking of weeks or months to get visa. I shouldn't want to travel to South Africa and be thinking about, how to pay for visa, there are a lot of things we can do together, and that's why, a borderless Africa is really important for us, to move forward in Africa. Another thing is there must be investment in infrastructure development, such as rural roads, such as accommodation facilities. If you're going to really do agrotourism well, there has to be accommodation facilities, for people to come around, to come for vacation, couples on honeymoon, people from school, can come around, can, have access to the agricultural facilities. So, accommodation facilities, very, very, very essential. So there has to be investment in infrastructures for agrotourism to become something, that we would see very well in Africa. Capacity building and trainings as well for local communities. These local communities, they have to go through trainings to understand that there are a lot of ways, income can be generated. And one major way is agrotourism. Trainings upon trainings have to be given to them, so they understand how to harness the opportunity in agrotourism. Also, the marketing and promotion strategies, has to be, taken to the next level, so that people are aware about agrotourism initiatives. I can tell you that a lot of communities in Africa don't even know that, they can tap into agrotourism to make so much more. All right. What I would recommend, from everything I've been talking about is that agrotourism can drive economic, foster cultural exchange, and it can create a borderless Africa. Because when, say, country, like Nigeria, we have the largest cassava, in the world, largest cassava plantation in the world, and if Nigeria understands that this is my own area of strength, Ghana understands that cocoa is my area of strength, Ghana and Nigeria can have good relationship. You exchange cocoa for cassava. You have that kind of relationship. And other extended to other African countries. What it will do is it will help. Easy access for countries, and then we can easily interact. And have good trade, relationship together. So it can do so much to drive our economic and foster cultural exchange and create a borderless Africa. All right. And also, we all have a role to play in this vision. And, what is the role? We all have, we have to support the local farmers around us. We have to promote African agrotourism. And also, we have to advocate for what? For policy change. Because there are a lot of policies that restrict, inter-country trade. There are a lot of, like the visa is one of them. When there is visa restriction, already it brings about disconnection from a country to another. All right. And an African proverb says that if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, we go together. One of the easiest ways by which you can really survive, in this space of agrotourism is that every individual, each and every one of us should be a part of this and see ways to make it work. All right. Conclusion. Agrotourism is a powerful tool for economic growth, for cultural exchange, and for African unity. By embracing a borderless future, Africa can maximize the benefits of regional tourism and trade. From all we have been talking about in this training, we have gotten to understand that agrotourism is a rich tool, for economic growth, because when, you have your farm, positioned in such a way that, other people from other continents can come and then exchange their currencies with you, what it does to that farm and even the community and the state in which the farm is that it brings about economic growth. Also, your culture, you teach them your culture, you understand their culture, it brings about good cultural exchange. Now, what it does, as a whole is that it brings about unity, and by embracing a borderless future, Africa can maximize the benefits of regional tourism and trade. We need to really invest and promote Africa's rich agricultural heritage to build a thriving, interconnected continent. A story was told about a traveler from France who visited Kenya, not for the safari, but to spend a week on a tea farm, learning how tea is harvested and processed. He stated that it was the best experience of his life. So there's a story about a Kenyan man that traveled from France to Kenya, to visit, to see the agrotourism space, not for safari this time around, but to spend a week on a tea farm, because Kenya is also rich in coffee and tea, and what he did there was to learn how tea is harvested and how tea is processed, and he said that was the best experience of his life. We've had situations where people come to farm and then, our own farm, they see suckers of pineapple and they are intrigued, that they don't even know that this is how pineapple is being propagated. We've seen, we've had, experiences where people come to farm as well, and they see how we take care of the cows, they see how cassava is being processed to garri, they see how chickens are being reared, they see a couple of things, and then they get to tell you that this experience is an experience they can't, leave off their head. That is what agrotourism can do. So imagine if Africa opened its borders, all right? And then they allow people from all over the world and even across the continent to experience our rich agricultural diversity without restrictions. That is the power of agrotourism, and it will do so much, to make Africa, really great. So before, I know someone will be asking that, since I'm saying that we should all be a part of it, what have we done ourselves, at Bond Harvest and Homes? We've had situations where, farm markets, people come around, buy different produce from the farm, and then they are happy leaving the farm because in one way or the other, they get to learn about the product, on the farm. Another thing is we've had people come for different, for agricultural tours, like I've mentioned in the training, guided tours of the farms with added recreational activities like people on the swing, and people seeing our ranch and being guided around the snail farm, the turkey farm, and a lot on the farm. So that's agricultural tour, for you. I just talked about, farm markets, at Adbond. Number 2 is agricultural tours. Another one is rural tourism. People come around and they see how things, cassava being harvested, and it's undergoing the form of being moved from cassava to what? Being processed from cassava to gari. So that's rural tourism, and these are people coming around to enjoy rural life. Also, farm stay at Adbond. We have a place, at Adbond where you can, at Adbond Harvest and Homes Farm, Legacy Bean Homestead to be precise, where you could, get to enjoy, your vacation and get to see the diverse things happening, on the farm. So newly reconstructed farm stay and information center. So these are things that we are doing at Adbond Harvest and Homes to promote agro-tourism, and better things are coming again this year, and we want you to be a part of it. So thank you for listening to me, and should you have questions, you have comments, suggestions, please do well to drop in our comment section. Thank you.